There is a unit inside the United States military so thoroughly hidden that its budget doesn't appear in public spending records, its personnel don't appear in standard military databases, and its operations, even successful ones, are routinely denied for decades after they occur. It is not hidden because the work is dangerous. Plenty of dangerous work is done in public. It is hidden because the United States government needs an instrument it can deploy in places it cannot officially be. And the moment that instrument became famous, it would stop working. Understanding why Delta Force is more secret than the SEALs means understanding something about how American power actually operates that most people, including most people inside the government, were never supposed to see clearly. And as America's most elite special operations unit is not the Navy SEALs. It is smaller, quieter, and built on a principle the SEALs were never designed to follow. While the SEALs have become a global brand, headlining memoirs, appearing in recruitment commercials, their training footage circulating freely online, there is another unit that exists in a state of manufactured invisibility. Founded in 1977 to conduct operations that technically don't happen, Delta Force signs its operators to a silence that outlasts their service. But the reason for that silence isn't tradition. It isn't even primarily about protecting the operators. It is a calculated architectural decision made at the highest levels of the American government, and it is still running exactly as designed. The Navy SEALs operate with roughly 2,500 active operators under Naval Special Warfare Command. Their pipeline reaches into high schools. Their selection course has its own mythology, its own footage, its own section at the bookstore. Most Americans can name the SEAL who killed bin Laden. Almost no one outside the military can name the Delta operator who pulled Saddam Hussein out of a hole in the ground. That contrast is not accidental. It was engineered. And the engineering began the moment Delta was placed inside a command structure built specifically to make things disappear. That leaves a single question. How does a unit this small keep not just its missions but its people so completely off the grid? And why does the United States government need it to? In 1977, Colonel Charles Beckwith returned from an embed with Britain's Special Air Service, convinced that the American military was solving the wrong problem. He didn't want a larger special operations force. He wanted a smaller one, invisible, deniable, and built for operations that couldn't be acknowledged even if they succeeded. His blueprint called for something the military didn't quite have yet. A unit so structurally buried that its existence could be officially denied even while it was actively deployed. That required more than secrecy protocols. It required a new architecture. The solution was the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. Established in 1980, JSOC became the bureaucratic structure that would make Delta invisible not just in the field but on paper. Delta's funding was folded into classified budget lines invisible to most of Congress. Its personnel records were separated from standard military documentation. Its command chain bypassed the conventional army structure entirely. Military journalist Sean Naylor has described JSOC's original architecture as designed from the ground up to keep Delta hidden both operationally and administratively. It wasn't that Delta became secret after it was created. Secrecy was the load-bearing wall. And that distinction between a unit that keeps secrets and a unit whose existence as a secret is the entire point is what most coverage of Delta Force never fully grasps. If the structure makes Delta invisible on paper, the selection process makes it invisible in person. And that process begins with a principle that has profound implications. Why nobody applies. Only experienced Army veterans are considered. Most have served 8 to 12 years, the majority coming from the 75th Ranger Regiment or Army Special Forces, units that have already screened for physical capability, psychological stability, and the ability to operate under sustained pressure. The average candidate is in his early to mid-30s. He has combat deployments, he has a record his peers can speak to, and he receives a quiet invitation, not a flyer, a conversation, usually after a deployment, sometimes from a commander who has been watching. This keeps the pool of people who even know they're being considered extraordinarily small. Every person who enters the pipeline already has a clearance, already has operational experience, and has already been vetted by the people recommending him. Exposure risk drops before the first day of training begins. That training takes place in the mountains of North Carolina. Its centerpiece is the Long Walk, an endurance event that can last more than 18 hours, conducted alone with a loaded rucksack and a map. No team, no pace group, no visible finish line, just distance and time and whatever the candidate brought with him mentally. Attrition runs between 90 and 95%. Most who fail return to their units without explanation. No announcement, no record of having tried. The silence around failure is as deliberate as the silence around success. As one retired ranger put it, you aren't just picked for your skills. You're picked because you know how to be quiet about all of it. For the few who pass, a 6-month operator training course follows. Some of the curriculum is not publicly documented, but enough has emerged through declassified briefings and careful reporting to sketch the outline. Surveillance and counter-surveillance, clandestine entry, lockpicking, the ability to move through foreign cities undetected, to look like someone who belongs there rather than someone who arrived from a military base. Language training, cultural immersion, the practical mechanics of deniability at the individual level. Here is what most coverage of Delta Force consistently misses. The secrecy isn't just institutional, it's personal. Each operator is trained not just to conduct missions invisibly, but to exist invisibly. The skills in that 6-month course belong to someone who understands that American involvement in certain places must be deniable even if discovered. Which means the operator himself must be deniable. His presence, his methods, his identity, and his history must leave no traceable signature. That is a different kind of training. It isn't just about being effective in a fight. It's about being effective in a fight in a country where the United States has officially never been. If you've been saving mental notes from this video, the JSOC architecture, the selection model, the way deniability gets built into an operator before he ever deploys, save the video itself. The next time someone talks about special operations capability, as if it's just about physical performance, this is the framework they're missing. The missions that emerge from that training share a single design principle. They have to be able to disappear. Hostage rescues from foreign soil. An elimination of high-value targets in countries where American forces are not officially present. Dismantling of terror networks before any public confirmation of their existence. Operations that, if they go wrong, cannot be traced back to Washington. Delta operators frequently work alongside CIA personnel, a pairing that blends military capability with intelligence tradecraft in a way that further obscures attribution. Planning, insertion, execution, extraction, each phase is designed with the assumption that exposure is possible and that American involvement must be deniable if it occurs. That assumption shapes everything. It is why Delta operators sign lifetime non-disclosure agreements enforceable under the Espionage Act. It is why most Delta operations remain classified for decades. It is why some missions are never officially confirmed even after they succeed. The wall cracks rarely. In 2019, the Department of Defense publicly credited Delta Force by name for the raid that killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, one of the very few times the unit received official acknowledgement. As a national security law scholar explained at the time, that disclosure was the exception that proved the rule. The legal architecture around Delta isn't designed to occasionally leak. Silence is the baseline. Disclosure requires an active decision at the highest level of government. Think about what that actually means. Most people assume Delta Force is secret to protect the soldiers. That is the surface answer. The deeper truth is that Delta's secrecy protects the presidency. Because the unit's actions are deniable, or it can be deployed in places where a conventional military presence would trigger a diplomatic crisis or an outright war. It is the instrument that allows for intervention without the political consequences of invasion. The secrecy isn't a feature of the unit. It is the unit's primary strategic function. That's what Beckwith actually built. Not just a capable fighting force, but a capability the government could deploy and disavow simultaneously. The most important events in modern military history are frequently the ones that never made the news. A Delta operator's successful career often ends with the public having no knowledge it happened at all. That is not a limitation of the job. It is the definition of it. See, there is someone you know who follows military history closely and still doesn't fully understand what JSOC actually is or what it was designed to do. Send them this, not for the Delta Force story specifically, for the framework underneath it. What that means for units like Delta as surveillance technology improves, as signals intelligence becomes harder to evade, as the tools of exposure multiply, is a question this video raises but cannot fully answer. The architecture that made Delta invisible was built for a world where information moved slowly and governments controlled most of the channels. Whether that architecture can adapt faster than the exposure risk grows is the question sitting underneath everything this video just covered. That is a separate video. And it is one worth coming back for. For those who want to go further, the full history of JSOC after September 11th, the scale of what it was authorized to do and why its expansion fundamentally changed the relationship between American military power and congressional oversight, that story makes this one look like the prologue. The comment worth leaving here isn't general reaction. It is this. What moment in this video most changed how you understand what special operations units are actually for? Write that. The answers usually go in directions the script didn't anticipate.